Hey, this is Matt from the deadeasylife.com, and today is my presentation given at the Life Without Instructions Unschooling Conference in New York in 2016. What we can learn from parenting, from research on what not to do, learning from the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. Hope you enjoy it. Great to be here. I'm talking about things that we can learn from parenting from studies on what not to do. The seminal landmark study on what not to do is called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, ACE for short. It measures questions, and then it measures what happened later in life. Very quick summary on the ACE study. I think it's great because it gives us unschoolers some scientific power behind us. It's very supportive of what we're doing, as I hope I could convey today. It's great to see a group of unschoolers together with all the nurturing and love and support that even these researchers talk about. On a sad note, there was a private class here, and it was interesting to see the opposite of an unschooled treatment. Yeah, treatment of kids. They lined up for the bathroom. They one girl went in, came out, and the teacher yelled at her and dressed her down pretty heavily because it wasn't long enough. She either didn't go to the bathroom or didn't wash her hands. I mean, this is this is the opposite of what I'm going to be talking about today. Another sad thing was a boy was put in a timeout, and I was going to say it. He said, "I'd rather be in prison than this timeout." So, this is the reason I talk. This is the reason I come and do these things, is to show what we know intuitively, but now science is catching up to us. So I hope you enjoy this talk. So my name is Matt Amberson. I've been studying philosophy and psychology since the 80s, but I learned about the ACE study in 2009, and it really did change my life. Molly, my lovely wife, my kids are not here because I wasn't supposed to say that they're here, and I started the Dead Easy Life to for me as a platform to attract other people to get to communicate email. So invitation for you, please, to any questions or anything, any comments, please hit me up at matt@deadeasylife.com. So this is the man. This is the Dr. Folletti that really is responsible for starting the ACE study. And like many scientific findings, it happened by accident in a way. Dr. Folletti was at the preventive medicine for Kaiser Permanente in San Diego, a huge health management organization, and he was in charge of their. One of the studies that he was in charge of was a radical weight loss program, and it was very successful. There were these people that were upwards of 400 pounds, losing weight down to 130 pounds, but he was having a high dropout rate. And if nothing, he's a type A guy. He was going crazy trying to figure out what was going on. And this is a graph of people's weight loss, and this is time, so it's like about a year, and they were going, having this tremendous result. He thought, hey, this is great. They're heavy, now they're light, should be great. Well, this isn't what happened. What happened afterwards, and sometimes even in a quicker manner, is that they would gain back the weight. And, of course, very troubling to Dr. Folletti. He interviewed some of these people, they were men and women. So he started to interview these people, men and women alike, in the study. And one lady said that she lost the weight, and she was back at work, and she was propositioned for the first time, and then a week after that, she gained the weight back. So Felicity said, "Oh, that's interesting." And then so he started to interview the participants, especially the ones that gained the weight back. And what he finally came across this one lady that he kind of misasked a question, and she said that she ended up crying and said that she was raped by her father at a very young age, and she gained 105 pounds directly after that. And he was shocked. And then he started to ask other ladies and men, had they had any sexual abuse, and most, not just half, not 25%, most of the people in this study had sexual abuse as children. And he subsequently went out and reported this to an obesity conference, and he was, thinking that he's a hero, and he was met with disbelief and almost anger. But then he was approached by a couple people afterwards, including one by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and they said, "Okay, we need to set up not just there were 286 people in this study. We need to set up a larger study. We need to set up a massive study that they can't ignore." So Felicity could do that, being at the Kaiser Permanente Center. So they came up with a series of 10 questions that represented abuse as they counted it that children could have, and started asking these questions in the mid-90s of the participants in the CDC. And then they would track their health outcomes, with the control set, the whole scientific thing. And what they found is that these later social, economic, health consequences were very negative for the people with ACE scores. And almost shockingly so. They were in such disbelief when the results started coming in that this seasoned researcher from the CDC was in tears, was seeing all this pain that people were in that never was reported, that no one was asking the questions of these people, and they were thanking them when they were asking the questions. I mean, this is something that's such a stigma in society that you just don't talk about this. That when they started to talk about it and started to, it was very emotional for everyone, not just the people, but the researchers as well. Again, this is very touchy subjects, but I'd like to go over the questions one by one with you guys, just so you could get a feeling. And I think it's good for you to know, just kind of go over mentally what your score is. It's so prevalent out there. I think that it's an important thing to do. It's an important thing for our children, basically, as well. And I think we can learn a lot from it. So if you don't mind, just mentally do it or not. And this is online. These questions are online as well. I know. I summarized it. Those are summaries of the questions. I'm gonna read them here.
But you'll give it a website.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, right. If you want to see them or whatever. So here's number one. Did a parent or an adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, humiliate you, act in any way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? The private school people probably would say yes on that one. Did a parent or other adult often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, ever hit you so hard that it made marks or you were injured? So what you're supposed to do is say, if you answered yes, that's one to any of these. If no, then you go on to the next one. Number three, did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you touch fondle, or touch their body in a sexual way, or attempt or actually have oral, anal, vaginal intercourse with you? If yes, that's 1. Number 4, did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you, thought you were important or special, your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or supportive of each other? If yes, that's 1. Did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, had no one to protect you, your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you, or take you to the doctor if you needed it? Again, 1 if yes. Were your parents ever separated or divorced? Was your mother or stepmother often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her? Kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, hit with something hard, ever repeatedly, at least a few minutes, threatened with a gun or a knife? If yes, 1. Did you live with anyone that was a problem drinker, alcoholic, or used street drugs? Number 9, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide? Number 10, did a household member go to prison? So those are pretty heavy questions, and they're summarized here as emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect, physical neglect, divorce or separated, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental illness, or household criminal. So that's the ACE study. They asked basically those 10 questions. And what they did is they just added them up and said, this is your ACE score. Now let's track you further in your life for various outcomes. And so here it is the kind of the count, the results. I don't know what your guess would have been, but if you had an ACE, you're not alone. As a matter of fact, you're in the majority if you had an ACE. And if you had 1, you're much more likely to have 2. And sadly, women are 50% more likely than men to have a score of more than 5. So this is happening out in our society. And it's not known, not really talked about. And these numbers are, I don't know how you feel about it, but I was quite shocked to 67%,
1 or higher.
1 or higher, yeah. 2/3 of people, 2 of every 3 of us, or most of the room, have 1 or more ACE. And the bad thing is that they are strong predictors of some very serious problems later in life. What are the serious problems? Death, disease, health risk behaviors, mental illness, and violence. So, death. So if you have 6 or more, your life expectancy on average was down 20 years. So just let that sink in. So they studied all these people. They counted up their scores. They watched them their whole lives. And the life expectancy of the ones with 6 or more ACEs were 20 years less than those without an ACE score. That is crazy. I don't know about you guys, but these, and by the way, not just me saying it, the researchers had never seen numbers that high. Even smoking, I think, is 18. Like if you smoke regularly, you're 18 times more likely to develop lung cancer. And that's one of the strongest results that there is out there. And look at all the people, you can't smoke anywhere in this hotel. You can't smoke anywhere, but what about the major problems that are going on out there? You're 46, and if you have a score of 6 or more, you're 46 more likely to commit suicide. I mean, that's a huge number. Now, this is disease. This is heart disease. If you answered, and it's kind of interesting, this slide, and I'll read it to you if you can't see it that well, is it shows that if you answered anyone from 1 to 10, what that number corresponded to more increased risk of heart disease. So if you answered yes to number 1, you have a 1.7 chance higher than someone that didn't to develop heart disease, 70% chance, or 70% more likely to have heart disease than someone that did not have an ACE or did not answer yes to number 1. And one of the points of this slide is that they're all relatively even. As a matter of fact, I contacted Dr. Felitti because one of them was missing from this. Very nice guy. And that was his response. And he actually gave me some other slides to present. These people want to get the word out, and very, very good guys.
When was the ACE study released?
97.
For a long
Yeah,
time.
97.
And it hasn't informed,
Right.
and doctors don't know this.
Right. No, so
It makes it sad.
So this is this. I mean, this is the sad part. This is one of the reasons I'm here, and it's. Well, actually, I should say this. It has been replicated many times. It's 50 times in scientific papers, and it's been replicated 100 times. 400,000 people have now taken the ACE study, and it's now basically worldwide. And I think 20 states have implemented ACE on a regular basis. So, I mean, it's not totally unknown, and it's becoming more and more known. And actually, as someone that's been following it, it's becoming much more known. Even though, I mean, like a group of well-educated people don't. Has anyone heard of the ACE study before today? Well, thanks, my friends. My daughter raised her hand. All right, who's not here? All right, so let's look at, this is an interesting slide too. Health risks that I talked about. This is your percentage chance of being an adult alcoholic with an ACE score. So if you had a 0 ACE score, it looks like about a 2.5% chance of being an alcoholic. If you have 4 or more, you have a 16% chance. Ken, what's that ratio? 16 divided by 2.5? Thanks a lot. And you're less likely to be able to do simple arithmetic. You thought you were going to heckle me. I'm actually... So this actually shows the dose dependency, and what that means is the more ACE scores that you have, it's proportionate to your higher chance of being an adult alcoholic. Also, another health risk, injected drug use. And, 0 is, 0.25, and you're, almost a 3.5 chance of having, 10 times more of a chance of being an injected drug user. And they also look at, sexual promiscuity, early pregnancy, absenteeism at work, and it's all kind of a similar tragic pattern of what's happening to people with high ACE scores and health risks.
And what if they actually tracked how much trauma school imparts? Because school is a huge trauma inducer, right?
Right.
It's the adult, yeah, because the questions
Right.
say
Right.
adult in your house, but that's an adult.
So actually, it's a good question. The reason one of the reasons I'm talking, one of the things that I bring to the table that I don't see in the other literature is just that. So what I see in this is unschooling. Like it's a line, like it's a line between all this abuse and 0 ACE is still way up here. But like, there's a lot of things that you could do better that aren't being measured. I think your point is that the things that I talked about, even with the children that were here, are not being measured as an ACE score. So you're giving away the big punchline here, Terry. Thanks a lot. That we'll get to later. But I mean, that's the point. I mean, is not just the tragic problems, but even the more subtle problems that we're going to see. So this is an interesting graph. I mean, terrible but interesting. This is depression, and what this shows is what we talked about before, that how women were more likely to have more ACEs, but they're also more affected by ACEs and depression. And this is, I mean, if you look at this number, so if you're a woman, you have about 15% chance of suffering depression in your life. This is 60% up here with many ACEs. 60% chance. I mean, what if people knew about that? I know. And even, men have a similar growth rate in that, but men actually, this next thing is the risk of perpetrating violence. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. Perpetrating violence in the house. So, I mean, we're seeing the same kind of proportional move, and a huge from violence in the house of 2.5%. to, for men, almost 16%. A large factor. But imagine societies where parenting and childhood are more violent. You wonder why some countries are more violent, and you wonder about the politicians who are taking us to war, what their childhoods must have been like. I think one of the things about ACE is that it makes you look underneath some of these bad behaviors at what, they say the child is the father of the man or the mother of the woman or whatever. How are these people getting to this point? Now hopefully what you could, I hope you could take from this is that, what were their childhoods like when you see these people. So just some summaries just on the study, and then we'll get into some conclusions. That ACEs are strong predictors of negative outcomes, as we've seen, and it's proportionate, and they're long lasting. They come out decades later. So why does that happen? Because we're told time heals. Well, it doesn't when children are getting mistreated when they need the most nurturing. They're being abused. And these are PET scans, PET scans. And it shows a healthy brain with the red as normal functioning in certain areas. And an unhealthy brain, it's like almost, it doesn't look like the same age child, but it is.
Is that because they're in fight or flight? Like the resources are being circumvented or pushed towards something else?
So Terry is now going 2 slides ahead instead of 4 slides ahead.
Just curious. I'm not a schooler. Sorry.
Well, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Do they have a clear definition of abused brains? Because, you talk to people all the time who do physical discipline, and they would never say they're abusing their child, and their child would never say that they're being abused, but clearly to some of us, just the act of corporal punishment would be considered abuse. So when you say the abused brain looks like that, there's ranges, and people will always defend corporal punishment saying, I'm not a monster, I'm not beating my child, which I'm wondering if that's what that is, if that's extreme, or what's the...
Yeah, this is extreme. This is a high A score. So one of the reasons the A score is even able to get out into the world is it's very demonstrable. It's very yes or no, did this happen?
Yeah.
Okay, we know as unschoolers that there's a lot more subtleties.
Right.
So we're moving from 0 A's, but way down, we're improving from 0 A's. This is terrible. But what I'm hoping to bring is that let's try to make these studies applicable to what you're talking about, to corporal punishment. Not
horrible abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
But hitting is in there. Did somebody
Yeah, but
hit?
right.
And that's just a yes or no.
Right.
Right, but my question is because I have talked to children who were raised with corporal punishment in a kind way, done the right way. I don't even know how to say this, but they would never say that they were hit. They would never say that they were raised in an abusive situation. And I have said to them, you were struck as a young, small person. You were hit, but they always justify it. So in their mind, they couldn't answer that question.
But what happens is what the thing shows, I think, is that it does come out, no matter how much they say.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm just wondering when that question was answered, there was somebody who put no for were you physically abused, and they're saying no, I wasn't. But in my mind,
yeah, it's
kind of
self-reporters.
Do you see what
I
I
mean?
mean?
They have to self-report.
Right.
So
Right. That's kind of where I was.
I hear you. Yeah.
People wanted to tell their stories because someone finally asked.
Yeah, for some of the.
Yeah, most people want to tell their story, and yeah, they have, and if interviewed in a respectful way, they could usually get a fair amount of the information out. What I'm trying to show here is that it actually helps you to get it out. For later in life, because I'm going to show the good part. I know this is pretty much of a downer, but the good part of it, once you know your ACEs and know what happened to you, in therapy and talking about it, you can kind of start to heal those wounds actually.
Right.
So it's in response to your question. If they're denying and denying, that's going to be bad for them. Like hopefully, selfishly, they'll see that hey, listen, if it happened, it happened.
Right.
And we have a lot of science behind it now. I mean, why are you hiding? You know, that's and be empathetic with them because what I'm also going to show. Oh well, not yet. Is what I'm going to show is that actually with more abuse, you forget more too, and that actually happens. And so it's kind of a sad irony that the more abuse you have had as a child, the least likely you are to remember. It's the same. It's not just. It's the same thing. It's just you don't have the mental capabilities. You don't have the mental capabilities, and it's and you're right. The brain has the brain wants to keep you going, and if you have a lot of trauma and you're always thinking about it, that's not going to be too good. So you're right. It does have to bury certain things, and this is what the reason I like the ACE, even though it's not as subtle as maybe we would like it. It's done with so many people that and so many other studies have come since that are answering these types of questions that at least we could get a launching point to start asking and showing people that listen, you were hit. This is what happens to people that were really hit, and it's problematic, and it's going to affect your life later on. And hopefully, selfishly, they'll want to do something about it. And ACEs help us look kind of underneath things like addiction, where it used to be, oh, that's just a bad drug, or marijuana's a bad drug. No, it's not the drug. It has to do with the childhood they had, much more than any drugs or anything. The more abuse that you've had, the much higher chance that we saw earlier, chances for addiction. So hopefully we could reframe these huge problems in society that are big mysteries, actually, especially like
The heroin problem?
well, that's a different problem. Yeah, heroin, but also these autoimmune diseases. That's the new ACE where they're going. There are these autoimmune diseases that are basically mysteries to doctors. They can't figure anything out about them. They're seeing the same types of numbers with the ACE studies causing autoimmune diseases later on. What are some of the names? Celiac, Crohn's disease, fibromyalgia.
Right.
All these are related to ACEs. This is the slide about not remembering. It's in similar fashion. Like, a third of kids don't remember their childhood with 4 or more ACEs. That's what you were remarking on. Like, they bury it, and it makes it even more difficult later on in life. So,
and they only test for adults. So if a sibling
right.
traded DNA,
So this is right. So you bring up good points about the ACE study itself. It's a blunt instrument, as I would call it, but they're actually adding things to it, like sibling abuse. And if you notice in the questionnaire, it was the mother abused by the father, but there's the opposite as well. And there's also, like, in some of these war-torn countries, I mean, or even bad neighborhoods, or like that, it's stressful every day. What really is going on, right, with the ACE score? It's stress-inducing. These people, the kids, are at the time they're trying to figure out the world and trying to figure out who they are. They're getting abused, and they don't know who they are, and the world looks like a crazy place to them because their house, their world to them is quite insane. And that's where I think a lot of what we could talk about, and now carry the ACE study kind of forward comes, like, getting rid of the stress. Yeah, that creates a lot of the problems in the brain. But that comes from the neglect, violence, and craziness in the house. I mean, if you have a drug addict in your house, that's a crazy place. The first thing that I would say is play. Like, what's happening with these abused, and even in that private school, is they're not having any fun. I mean, life needs to be worth living for you to want to do things and want to be good and do good things for other people. There's no fun in it. Play is empathetic. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the people that you're interacting with. And acceptance. You have to see, by acceptance I mean like kind of see the person for who they are. Like on a map at a mall, it's you are here. Like this is who you are. And reflect that back to the child. So they, because it is very confusing. Like especially in these traumatic households, how do we, what are some of the things that we could do? Acceptance, respect. Act in a respectful way, and be respectful towards the child. Respect. Look again at the child to say, reflect back when what they're doing. Make them feel like a full human being, and I think that has a lot to do with the opposite of these ACE scores. Empathy is what you're doing, showing them their emotion, reflecting back their emotion. A lot of these traumatic situations that they were in, the kids didn't have any kind of mirroring. Some of the really tragic situations are in these that was in that picture of the PET scan was actually in a Romanian orphanage where they have very little interaction and very little knowledge of what's going on, with a caretaker reflecting back what's happening. Non-aggression, I think that's obviously a huge thing. Non-aggression means nothing, hitting, emotional, physical, anything. Trust, having doing what you say, having the child's word. If you say you're going to do something with the child, do something, and hold the child somewhat accountable too. So that's an important thing that these abused kids are not getting at all. And of course, safety. Create a very safe environment. Don't expose them to. How are you supposed to keep your kids safe in school? You let them go. And some of these schools are not safe. Self-knowledge. That's a big word, but just knowing your ACE scores and knowing about this is a huge step on self-knowledge. I've termed it individually led learning because I wanted it to spell out a really cool thing, parents with skill. So, but it's based.
You didn't tell us about your.
I'm going to do that right now, Terry. And then the way I remember it, because my short-term memory is gone now, is it spells out parents with skill, and this is on my site, Dead Easy Life, but it's parents with skill, and that's individually led learning. Pretty cool, huh? So far, James's favorite thing.
But I think, so for me, maybe I'm going to get ahead of myself.
These other addictions and health risks that they're getting into is dealing with their underlying anxiety, underlying fear. Like they have a fear of the world. People with very high ACE scores, and of course they're going to do something to get rid of that anxiety. And in subtle ways, it happens to all of us. But again, the ACE score shows it in kind of blinking lights because it's so terrible what some people have. But it gives us some more fodder in order to talk about things like that. Like underlying these bad behaviors are fear, anxiety, etc. And that's how people kind of act out. And the opposite of that is, I hope, something like this. And what to do with yourself is, if you could take care of your own mental health, which is in the self-knowledge, which is knowing your ACEs and talking to professionals about this. There are pros that know ACE scores. So if you're talking to a therapist, I would hope that they would know something about this in order to take this and help you with some of the problems that you're dealing with. I call it Ask Because We Act, more acronyms. We're always communicating trauma, ACT, always communicating trauma. All of the time, somehow, the way we look, the way we conduct ourselves, the tattoos that we have, the music that we listen to, it's always acting out something that happened in the past. And when I say acquire self-knowledge, ask, look at your ACE scores, look at what the causes of your trauma that you're acting out. And then it kind of cycles and you feel better. You feel better understanding it. People were thanking Felitti for asking these questions. if they feel better, like immediately when you start to talk about it. So that's I think the process is, beginning with yourself, and that's how to break the cycle. And nurturing children, you're building strong brains, and a healthy brain is required to get through this world. Lloyd DeMoss is one of my favorite social historians, and I like his quote, so I'm just going to read it here. And the last thing is, it's evident that the results in a child who is gentle, sincere, never depressed, never imitative, or group-oriented, strong-willed, unintimidated by authority. Those would actually be scary people to a lot of people, but those are the people that we want. Yeah. So I want to invite you guys to come to the Dead Easy Life and just email me if you have any questions or comments on if you find anything out.
When I look at something like this, I'm like, well, yeah, of course I want to raise a child with an A-score of 0. Like, that's hopefully all of our goal. But then I'm like, I wonder about all the 0 to 1 things that I might be doing subconsciously. Like,
or it doesn't. No, it's not 0 to 1. Like, I think there's a whole continuum underneath it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it goes like, I think that the continuum goes much farther. And I don't want to raise someone with a 0 ace. I want to go much farther, and that's in the parents with skill type thing, too.
And I think that's where apology and normalizing, right? Because you can go a long way. Bad things happen, right? But being able to come back around with your kids and talk to them, hey, dude, I noticed that this happened. How did that make you feel? Well, obviously, scared. Hey, I completely understand that. I had that happen to me. It's normalizing it. I think a lot of these situations, no one's normalizing it for them, right? The perpetrators and the person who's supposed to be protecting them is perpetrating, right? In many ways.
I think, and I think what they're saying a lot with the ACE study, what I'm hearing now is they're finding it's the chronic, unpredictable stressors that most of them have in common is the thing that affects the kids most negatively. So it's like this, it's like, instead of you have that fight or flight response when a bear's in the room, or when you're in the woods and there's a bear, you get the fight or flight. Well, they live with the bear. In some way, there's a bear in their house. Right. So they're always in that amped up, and it changes their DNA, and it actually changes their brain composition. It changes a lot of things.
Drop the mic and leave.
I never feed my dog.
So, do you guys want to wrap it up? Do you have any more questions, or how are we doing? All right, thank you. All right, thanks, guys.